Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another vlog about some of the cameras in my collection. Apologies to Leica enthusiasts because I'm afraid that this vlog is entirely Leica free, but I hope you'll stay with me anyway. Because what I'd like to show you today and explain why I've got these two cameras is it's rather a complicated, well, it's not a complicated story, it's a bit of a convoluted story, which I will try to keep as short as possible. But it all stems around this lens. Now, this lens, as you can see, it's an F 2.8 135mm Nikon lens. And how I came by this was a few years back. My wife bought me a surprise present in the form of a Mamiya 645 1000s medium format camera, and it came in a case. There was the body, there was additional items like a separate handle that you could attach to the camera and operate the shutter from. Can't think what it's called off the top of my head, but I think you'd probably know what I mean. It makes carrying the camera more comfortable because they're quite heavy. At least, in my opinion, it makes them sound more comfortable. And it came with three lenses. It came with three Mamiya lenses, a 75, an 80, and a 210 lens. But it also came with this this Nikon lens, and I've never quite understood why. All the lenses that it came with they've all been looked after, in as much that they're all protected with skylight filters, and it is actually optically in very good condition. The focus is a bit stiff and it's a bit sort of swooshy, as if it could probably do with a service to free it up a bit. But the lens works beautifully. And so I had this lens sitting by my computer for ages because I hadn't got any Nikon, or I hadn't at the time got any Nikon film cameras, and I kept looking at it. And my wife said, "Well, why don't you just sell it? You've got no use for it." But my mind doesn't work like that. So I thought, well, I could actually go and get hold of a Nikon F, providing it wasn't too much money. So that's what I set about doing. So that's the reason why I've got these two cameras, because of this particular lens. So I'm just going to put that out of the way for a moment, and I'm going to show you the camera that I actually bought. Now, I've deliberately disassembled part of it, but I'll explain why in a minute, because this is the camera anyway. This is an early 70s Nikon F. Now, I've got to be careful how I pick this up though, because it's a little bit vulnerable. So I'll sort of hold it like that. Now, this camera, you can see it there. I'll put it down because I don't want to damage it. This camera I saw on eBay, and it was going at quite a reasonable price. I think it was something like, I think it may have been something in the region of between £100 and £200. I should have tried to find out really, but anyway, no matter. The chap the vendor said he would throw a 35mm Nikon lens in with it and a leather case, and so I thought, well, it's a bit risky, but I'm going to go for it. The actual photographs on the advert weren't at all flattering. It did actually look, quite rough, and it was a bit of a risk, but it was a risk that I was prepared to take. And anyway, the camera turned up, and I was rather surprised that in the flesh, if you like, or in the metal, the camera looked a lot better than it did on the photograph. And it felt nice. Everything seemed to work on it. And then I was messing around with it one day, before I put some film through, and I noticed that one of the shutter blinds was damaged. Now these are titanium metal blinds, and now that one is in perfectly good condition. But if you look, this one here, then whether you can see this there, I don't think the camera's going to focus up too well on that one. It was damaged. We wondered, I say we, my wife wondered if it had somebody had been clumsy loading a film in, and they'd done that with their fingernail, because the rest of the blind doesn't look too bad at all. But now what you're seeing, that's not a hole now, but what you're seeing is the light reflecting off the material that I used to repair it. I phoned up one camera repair company in the UK and inquiring about having a new blind fitted, but they said these blinds are no longer available. And so I thought, well, okay, time for a bit of experimentation. I know it was pinhole because what I did, I took the front lens off, I took the back off, and these cameras have a mirror lockup, so it's not difficult to do things like this. And I shone a torch through, and lo and behold, there's a very, very slight pinhole where that damage is. So what I did, I got some, I actually, occasionally I'll build plastic models, things like that, or modified die-cast models. That's another interest I've got. And so I've always got Humbrol paint in the house. And so I got a fine brush, I used some Humbrol enamel paint, and I painted over the little bit of damage. And I left it for a few days, and then I did the same test again with the torch, and lo and behold, there was no light passing through. And I have used this camera a few times, but every time I do put a film in, I do that trick with the torch. I just test it, but so far so good, and it's worked quite nicely. In fact, it's worked very nicely. But really, you know, there's no real alternative. I mean, if that bit of paint come off, I'd put some more on, and it might pay me to make that patch a little bit bigger. But it's there anyway, and as I've said, that reflection is just light out of the window. In fact, looking at it through the phone, it does look like a hole, but I can assure you that's paint, that's the light's reflecting off the paint. But you can actually see there's a crease there, and I wonder if somebody had done that and they literally put their fingernail on when they were loading a film, because I think these curtains are they're very thin titanium. So anyway, that was the one thing I did, and it actually works very well. I've taken some very decent photographs with it. But the other reason I've got this one in bits was because, just to show you that these are a system camera, and this is the photomic, what's called the photomic head. To all people who are familiar with Nikons, I apologise about this, but I've taken this off deliberately because in order to release this, and it's the same on both cameras, it's a bit fiddly actually, because you have to press this lever in here, and at the same time press a button on the back of the body, which is about there, and then the head, then you sort of waddle the head about a bit and it lifts off. And I didn't want to do that on camera in case I had a real problem doing it. And I'm quite certain you wouldn't want to be sitting there watching some idiot trying to take his Nikon apart. So I've pre-stripped this one. And anyway, that's basically what the prism, the FTN prism, which I think this was the final version. And that's what they look like. This turns on the meter, and you turn it off that way. And you'll notice when the meter's on, there's a little red band there to remind you, and then you press that back down to turn it off. And of course this is the extension to the shutter dial, and that works by if you look on the shutter dial just here, there's a little dogs sticking up, and that when you put it on, you just turn this until that dog falls into this little gap here, and then you can control this one from that one. So it's like a sort of an extension, really. So there's your shutter speeds on there, and there of course is the viewfinder and so on. So I'll put this bit down because you've more or less seen what's going on there. These are these are the prongs that when you press this bit here, these are the prongs that actually release it from the camera body. And of course, what's interesting is that when the body's got the finder removed, it's still got Nikon on there. And the reason for that is if you have a plain prism, something that I actually quite like, but they tend to be expensive, it still shows that the camera is a Nikon. Both of these cameras are late ones. I think the final year of production is around about 1971, and the serial number on both of these cameras, I believe, starts with a 72. Now, does anybody know? Does that denote the year of manufacture? Those first two digits. If you know, let me know. But they are late ones. Another reason is that the very early ones, I mean, these were first produced in 1959, I think, and the earlier ones don't have this Nikon in this form here. That they have, I think it says something like, or what is it, Nikon Kagaku or something, in a sort of a script there with some more fancy engraving there. So this denotes that these are quite late ones. Why a Nikon F? Well, I like to think that some of the cameras in my collection are sort of I can't think of the proper word really, are sort of pioneers of their type or iconic of their type. And the original Nikon F, this really was a bit of a game changer, because basically it's the original Nikon body from the earlier S-series cameras, which were rangefinders, but sort of developed further to become a single lens reflex camera. And I mean, these cameras were expensive when they were new. They only tended to be bought by either very wealthy amateurs or professional photographers. I mean, they are really heavy, that they're hefty. In fact, and I'll come to this a bit later on, but I find them quite awkward to use. But anyway, continuing with the theme of the camera itself, as you can see, also while I'm at it, the focus screen there, now they can be removed and replaced with different types, or removed for cleaning for that matter. And you'll also notice that the whole of the base comes off completely, and that's quite useful though, because it emits a source of light leaks, because as you I don't know whether you can see this, but the body fits into this bit, so this part of the body is inside that bit. It goes within the I know it's not very easy to see this, but it sits within, rather like the base of a Leica. It sits over the original body, so it eliminates any light leaks anyway, or at least the source of light leaks. The only other place I can see where you could probably have one is here, because that's a felt seal there, and that could probably be needed replacing. But I mean, I've had no light leak problems with this camera. and the seal on that one is about the same. I've been trying to think, have I actually put any film through this one yet? Because I was looking on my computer the other day and I couldn't find any. But I'm sure I have. I know it sounds ridiculous, but I think I have. And the other thing is my negative filing system is usually pretty good, but I can't find any negatives marked. This is for this one, which I was going to refer to as the black Nikon F, so I know which one I've used when I start sorting through the negs. And I can't find it either, but I'm sure I put a film through it. Anyway, never mind. So anyway, that's basically how the bodies work and come apart. And I say, other than the damage to that blind there, which is a bit of a shame, but I've overcome that. Well, at least for the time being. It works very, very well. So I will understand why I've partly stripped this one down, so it makes it easier rather than doing it on camera and having to, mess about while you just sit there and wonder what on earth's going on. So anyway, that's the way the back goes on, and that's the way the light is sealed from the back. It's very much like a Leica. It's a bit like putting a lid on a tin. So let's very carefully move this one out of the way, because I don't want my fingers to come into contact with those shutter lines. Move it there, and I'll put this. Just put that back over it as well. Keep any dust out. So this is the black body one. The hang on, which lens? Yeah, that's an f2 lens, isn't it? Yeah. So the other one, the silver one, came with an f2.835 lens, and which came with the camera, and of course I got this other lens, this 135 already. So it was two lenses I got. Then I decided I'd buy a standard 50mm, because that's the focal length that I tend to use anyway. So I bought this lens off eBay, and this one's quite smooth. It's in very nice optical condition, and I didn't pay an awful lot for it. And these lenses, I do like them. I'm looking at some of the prints I've done off the other camera, and I can't remember which lens I used now, but the quality is nice. This one was advertised on eBay as well, and the vendor quite rightly said this FTN head, which is the same as the other one, is working, but he said he couldn't guarantee its accuracy. And I put some batteries in, and the readings, in my opinion, are far too high. I took the head off and messed about a bit, and there was at one point where the readings seemed to be, fairly good. But I really need to do some proper tests with a separate light meter. But I think my current opinion is that it is working, but it's not working accurately. But I did fiddle about with it, and I can't remember what I did now. But I think the sort of readings I was getting at one point were okay, but as soon as I turned the meter off and turned it back on again, it seemed to go a bit haywire again. So I'm going to say that description was good. It definitely reads, but it's not giving an accurate reading. I mean, you've got to remember that these are old cameras, and they've probably seen some service. And now I think when I bought the silver one, I think I did one set of photographs, and the meter seemed to work. But since then it hasn't, so I don't know what's going on with that one either. But there's one thing that well, there's a number of things I dislike a bit about these cameras, and that is the meter, quite frankly, is if you wear glasses, it's very difficult to see it because it's right at the top of the viewfinder. And I mean, anybody who's used one of these with this type of heading will know what I mean. So, you know, whether the meters work or not, I can always use a hand meter. So, yeah, now, as I said, these cameras are heavy. They feel nice, and, you know, they're aesthetically sort of not unpleasing, but I think they look better without this great chunk sitting on the top. But first of all, you know, I thought, well, that's what makes them, that's the bee's knees, having that big photomic head on the top. But I was sort of changing my opinion a little bit. I've seen a few photographs of these cameras with the plain prism on. But I say that plain prism is, they seem to be rather expensive. So it'll probably, I don't use these a lot. It's nice to have them in the collection and play about with them. But, well, I can live without the working meter, but it would be quite nice to have it working all the same. So what else do I have to tell you? Now, for ages and ages, I was sort of having problems getting the lenses off these bodies until I did a bit of research, and they need to actually be set to a certain aperture to remove the lens, which I believe is f16. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to remove the lens now as a demonstration. And I'm going to set the aperture to f16, and this is the release button here. I'm going to do that now, and I'm just going to twist the lens like so, and it comes off beautifully. Apparently, to put the lens back on easily, you then set the aperture to f5.6. I hope I've got this right, but now it's set to f5.6. Put the lens back on and do that, and it's back in place. Now you'll notice that the lens has got rabbit ears. Those rabbit ears are there so that if you're using a plain prism, those rabbit ears don't do anything. They're the bits stuck on top of the lens. Look a bit like rabbit ears. If you've got the plain prism, they don't do anything at all. The reason they're needed though for using these finders is that the rabbit ears connect with that pin that you've just seen it connect with, and that's to link the camera up with the light meter. So the light meter knows what the camera aperture is set at, because as you can see, it moves along. And also you'll notice it's now set itself in doing that, because this is an f2 lens, and if you can see the little pin there is now in the little slot there, and this is mark 5628 1.2. Now this is an f2 lens, so there's no markings on here for an f2 lens, but this little red band is about where it would be if there was an f2 lens. In other words, if I were to put this lens on, which is an f2 lens, the little red line there would be sitting under the f2.8 markings, but it can't with this because it's an f2 lens. So what it's done, it's aligned up the lens with the meter, so the meter would now know that there's an f2 lens on that body. So we'll just have a little look around the camera then. So if I'm going to put this back on there, a bit of protection. So let's look at the front. Well, there's a delayed action timer. That is a preview for depth of focus. This is the lens release button, which you've just seen me use, and this is a mirror lockup. So if I move that so that there's a little black dot there, I hope this is focusing properly. there's a little black dot. If I move this so that black dot is facing upwards, and then I cock the shutter and fire it, the mirror will lock up. There's the flash socket. Now, you may have noticed that there's no provision for mounting a flash gun on this. So what you'd have to do is buy an accessory which slips over the rewind knob here, and you could attach your flash that way. There's no hot shoe. Well, there's no cold shoe. So but that's what you need to do. I don't use flash these days, so that's no problem. And what else have we got? Well, we go around the back, and this is the release I mentioned. So in order to get this head off, you've got to push that bit in there and press this at the same time. And I don't know whether it's through wear or what, but interestingly, the vendor put a little message inside as well, saying that he occasionally has, he must have sold quite a few of these, because occasionally he'll have one where you can press that and it doesn't, you have to press it right in before it will work. Presumably, if this was new, I should just be able to do that, and it should release. I don't know. I've never had a brand new one. But he recommended using something to push the button right in. Well, actually, when I took that one off, I actually managed it with my fingernail, but I've got quite long fingernails. And he said it's occasional. Well, I would argue that point, because both of these have the same problem. They have to be really pressed well in. And it is a bit awkward to get them up, and it's even more awkward getting them back on again. Well, at least I found that anyway, unless it's just me. But anyway, so there's the shutter, 1,000th of a second maximum, and of course they line up with what's on the top as well, because the little dog is in the right place. Which if you've altered so when I put this one back on, if I've altered the top bit from the speed, from the dial when it was set on it, all you do is you just turn this and you'll feel it align itself. So you don't have to worry about lining up anything here. You don't have to worry about getting the 1,000th of a second there. It will do it itself as you just turn the top bit. And I think that's it. This has got another little for changing the ASA reading. If that happens to work, then you just lift this off and you move it around, and there's a little red triangle. I don't know if you can see it just there. So that's actually set on 200 ASA. And now this one, interesting, I did notice that if you can see this is set to 30. That's a reminder that you just got a 36 frame film in there. There's also a 20. I think the Pentaxes are like that. They've got a 20 as well. Now, as we all know, people that use 35mm, you either buy 24 frame film or 24 exposure film, or 36. So presumably then, back when these were made in the dark ages, you got 20 frames off the shorter film. But what I had noticed, I did actually set it to 20 because I was going to put some 24 frame film through it, and I then noticed that the counter wasn't working. Now, I did a bit of research about this, and it's I think it's quite a common problem to have with these, where the counter doesn't work at all. I thought, well, that's no big deal. I often forget to set the counters on my Leicas, and you always know you've got to the end of the film because the winder suddenly becomes a bit stiff, and you think, that's it, end of the film, don't force it. So it wasn't a big deal. But then I was, for some reason, I put it back to 36, and it does work. he says, but it isn't, is it? It's stopped. No, it isn't working because that's no. Oh well, forget that bit then. All right, this is the beauty of doing unedited videos. You demonstrate something, only to find it it isn't working. So the only way I can reset that now is take the base off. So well, I thought that was working, but as I said, it's no big deal really. If it doesn't work at all, there's a chance that inside this mechanism somewhere there's a fine coil spring, a hairspring, and they can break. But it was working on this one. Let's just take the base off for a moment, and that should now reset completely. I'll get the base back on again. Yeah, that's back on. Now has that reset? Yeah, it's reset now. So let's try again. Now that does appear to be working, doesn't it? So perhaps it just gets up to 10 and decides it's had enough. Don't know. No big deal. I mean, it's not worth trying to get it repaired. You keep a rough eye. You know full well that even if your film, if you're out shooting film over a number of days, you sort of got a rough idea of how many frames you've taken. So all you do is as you get to, you think, well, I'm getting near the end of the film, wind it on a bit more gently, and if at any point this lever sort of locks, then you know full well that you're at the end of the film, so just don't force it. So it's no big deal, that. So anyway, that's the Nikon F. Do I like them? Well, I'm not actually certain, because my favourite SLR is the Pentax Spotmatic. It's a little bit lighter. It's also a nice quality camera. And what I find with this one is, because it's got this head jutting out, you know, when you're playing around with the setting the aperture, you actually can't see it all that well. I mean, I know there's a lot of Nikon fans that are going to be probably sitting here fuming, and will probably be writing, composing comments. But you can see it from there. But when you're around the other side here looking down, I find it's a bit awkward, that the fact that this finder sort of is hiding the aperture numbers. But perhaps that's just me, I don't know. And certainly I find, even if these heads were working, I find it awkward, a bit awkward. You sort of got to hold the camera at a certain angle to see them, if that what the meter's reading. Whereas with the Pentax, it's much bigger and it's down the side of the camera. But again, that's partly probably due to the way these heads work. And I mean, this is a different camera. It's more complex because it's got a removable head. So that's, you know, I'm not going to criticize it too much for that. It's the nature of things. It's probably down to the way it has to be engineered in order to have an interchangeable head anyway. But and it's also, it's heavy. I mean, you know, the Pentax isn't a lightweight, but this is very heavy. And yeah, okay, it shows that it's built like a tank, and well, we know that because these cameras were used a lot during the Korean War, and there's a well-known photographer, British photographer, Don McCullum, and if you look online, you'll find a photograph of his Nikon that took a bullet for him, and if that camera hadn't have been round his neck where it was, he would have almost certainly got shot, because the bullet hit the camera, and he got away with it uninjured. So that speaks quite a lot about the camera quality and the heft of it. So I think that's probably it now. I think let me have a quick look. Yeah, but it's very nice to have these in the collection, and it's nice to have a silver one and a black one. And of course, there's no need to do that. It's no different. It's just the two options. But I did want a Nikon F, not an F2 or an F3 or whatever. I wanted the original one, the one that the game changer, if you like, of the Nikon range. So anyway, I think that's enough rabbiting from me. So thank you for watching, and if you've got any comments that you'd like to make, please do. You can ask questions as well, but I can't guarantee I can answer those, because I don't know a stack about these cameras, other than they're heavy and a bit awkward, but at least in my opinion they are. But they're still very nice to play about with. Oh, one other thing as well. Yeah, which one have I done it on now? Just bear with me for a second, because I'm starting to go through my cameras now. No, I can't remember which one it is. But I've actually... let's take the lens off. Let's take the lens off this one. Is it? No, it isn't this one. It's the other one. If you have, can you see that there? That's where the buffer goes for the mirror. It's the mirror buffer, and clearly on this one you can see the foam. It's virtually non-existent. Now that should actually act as a sort of a buffer as the mirror flips up, and this isn't just a Nikon problem. This is a problem with all single lens reflex cameras. It isn't focusing that well, is it? Yeah, I think that's it. But you can see the foam here. That needs replacing, and I bought some foam. I've replaced the let me just take the lens off the I don't want to handle this too much because it's a bit vulnerable, but I've replaced the foam on this one. It's really easy. It's no big deal. Let's tip it upside down, keeping my hands off the and there in that one. Well, you can see it. I put a new piece of foam in. There you can see that. Yeah, it's not perfectly level, but that doesn't really matter. It's doing its job, and I would recommend anybody who's got a single lens reflex camera to check the mirror foam, because I shall have to do it with the two Pentaxes as well, because I've looked at those and they're exactly the same. You can buy kits with it specially cut, but it's a lot cheaper to just buy. You can get the foam off eBay. It comes in different thicknesses. I use 3mm for this because it sits in a little bit of a tray, and it seems to work perfectly well. You can get 2mm as well. I'd probably use the 2mm for the bodies, for that seal on the top underneath the heads. But of course it will compact down, and what it does, it just saves the it saves the mirrors from getting damaged. And the reason I used 3 was because I think I read somewhere that's what other people tend to use, but you could probably use 2mm as well. The point is that as the mirror comes up and rests against the foam, that foam will probably get compacted down quite quickly anyway, depending on how often the camera is used. But that's something to look out for. It's a bit fiddly, and you must remember it's best to do it with the camera upside down. Well, in fact, you have to really, but put something in there, put some tissue in, so that when you're getting the bits out, and it's just like dust, you don't want that falling into the camera. So it's best to put some tissue paper or something in there over the mirror, and if you're careful, you shouldn't get any in the camera at all. So that's it. And there's the other seal I was talking about, and that could probably do with replacing as well. I'd use probably 2mm foam on that. So anyway, that's if you want to replace the seals on your SLR, there are plenty of YouTubers doing that. So yeah, well, crikey, we're up to 40 minutes now. Right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for that, and speak soon. Bye for now.